Welcome to the Hidden Truth Stories channel. Today we are diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. The surface of Lake Oakhaven looked like a sheet of polished obsidian. It reflected the towering silhouette of the Cascade Mountains and the light dusting of early snow that capped their peaks. There was a stillness so profound that it felt as if the world itself were holding its breath, waiting for the secrets hidden in the depths to rise like bubbles to the surface. It was late October in the year 2025. The air was crisp, smelling of pine needles, damp earth, and the metallic tang of impending rain. It was a scent that Alara Vance had come to associate with discovery. Alara was not merely a visitor to this remote corner of the Pacific Northwest. She was a hydroarchaeologist, a woman who had spent the last decade mapping the forgotten topographies that lay beneath the water lines of the world's most mysterious lakes. She sat in the cabin of her research vessel, the Silence. It was a converted trawler that hummed with the gentle purr of its electric engine, designed specifically to minimize acoustic disturbance. This was critical because Alara was hunting a ghost signal. It was a rhythmic, low-frequency pulse that had been detected by a geological survey drone 3 weeks prior. The pulse beat at exactly 14 hertz, a frequency that shouldn't exist in nature, at least not with such mathematical precision. The signal was emanating from the deepest trench of the lake, a fissure known to locals as the Devil's Throat. The indigenous elders of the region called it the Sleeping Dark, a place where the water grew so cold and heavy that light refused to penetrate it. Alara was now piloting her vessel toward this abyss, her eyes scanning the sonar screens that glowed with a warm, amber light in the dim cabin. She took a sip of her coffee, the ceramic mug warming her hands. She looked out the window at the mist curling off the water, thinking about the history of this place. That history wasn't written in textbooks but whispered in local legends. Stories told of a reclusive inventor named Elias Thorne who had vanished in 1893. He was a man who had claimed that the earth had a voice and that he was building a machine to sing back to it. Most people dismissed Thorne as a madman, a victim of the gold fever that had swept the region. But Alara had found fragments of his journals in a dusty antique shop in Portland. The pages were filled with sketches of copper coils, resonance chambers, and precise calculations that matched the coordinates of the signal she was tracking. The boat slowed as it reached the center of the lake. The sonar showed the bottom shifting from a gentle slope to a sudden, jagged drop-off, the mouth of the trench yawning open like a silent scream. Alara engaged the dynamic positioning system to hold the Silence steady against the subtle currents. She moved to the aft deck where her remotely operated vehicle, a sleek, titanium-shelled submersible she had affectionately named Nautilus, hung from the crane. Its camera lenses gleamed like unblinking eyes. With the practiced ease of a veteran explorer, she lowered the drone into the icy black water, watching the tether unspool, a lifeline connecting the world of air and light to the world of crushing pressure and eternal night. Back at the control console, she watched the monitors as Nautilus descended. The blue of the surface water faded quickly to a twilight gray, and then to an inky blackness, illuminated only by the powerful LED floodlights mounted on the drone's frame. The depth gauge ticked downward, 300 feet, 400, 500. As the drone descended, the silence of the deep seemed to seep into the cabin, a heavy, comfortable blanket of quiet that slowed her pulse and deepened her breathing. The screen showed the particulate matter in the water, like marine snow, drifting past the camera like stars in a warp field, hypnotic and serene. At 600 feet, the temperature plummeted, and the sonar began to ping with a stronger intensity. The 14 Hz signal grew louder, more distinct, a steady thrum-thrum-thrum that resonated through the hull of the boat and into Ilara's bones. It felt less like a mechanical noise and more like a heartbeat. She navigated the drone carefully past towering cliffs of granite, ancient rock formations that had been carved by glaciers millennia ago. Their surfaces were slick with silt and microbial mats. And then, at a depth of 800 feet, emerging from the gloom like a phantom, she saw it. It was not a shipwreck. It was not a natural rock formation. It was a structure, geometric and purposeful, jutting out from the side of the trench wall on a natural shelf. Ilara's breath caught in her throat as she maneuvered the drone closer. The lights revealed a dome constructed of copper and brass, now tarnished to a deep, verdant green by over a century of submersion. It was still intact, its rivets holding fast against the crushing weight of the lake. It looked like a diving bell from a Jules Verne novel, fused with the architecture of a cathedral. This was it, Elias Thorne's folly, or perhaps his masterpiece. The signal was coming from within the dome. Ilara guided the Nautilus around the perimeter of the structure, looking for an entry point or a viewport. She found a thick, circular window made of quartz glass, remarkably clear of algae. It was likely kept clean by the heat radiating from the structure, for she noticed now that the dome was built directly over a small hydrothermal vent, utilizing the Earth's own heat as a power source. This was a genius bit of engineering that explained how the signal had persisted for 130 years. Through the quartz window, the drone's lights illuminated the interior. Ilara leaned closer to the screen, squinting in disbelief. Inside the dry, pressurized chamber, she saw a chaotic yet harmonious arrangement of brass gears, pendulums, and large magnetic coils, all moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, driven by the steam from the vent. In the center of the room sat a desk, and on it, a leather-bound book and a peculiar apparatus that looked like a phonograph, but with a needle resting on a spinning cylinder of polished stone. The signal wasn't a distress beacon, it was a recording. But why? Why build a laboratory at the bottom of a lake? As she adjusted the drone's external microphone, filtering out the water noise, she isolated the sound coming from the structure's vibrations. It wasn't just a pulse. It was a complex, layered harmonic, a musical chord played on the bass strings of the universe. She remembered a passage from Thorne's journal. The tectonic plates do not merely grind, they sing. If one could harmonize with their frequency, one could soothe the tremors, lull the earth to sleep. The realization washed over her with the force of a breaking wave. Thorne hadn't built a weapon or a hideout. He had built a lullaby machine. He believed the region's seismic instability, the earthquakes that had plagued the area in the 1890s, could be quelled by acoustic counterfrequencies. He had descended into the dark not to hide, but to serve as a guardian, setting this machine in motion to sing the fault line to sleep. The machine was a stabilizer. Ilara stared at the screen, mesmerized by the slow rotation of the brass flywheels inside the sunken chamber, witnessing a century-old act of altruism that no one had ever known about. The madman had spent his final days, or perhaps his fortune, creating a silent sentinel to protect the valley above. She noticed something else on the desk inside the chamber, a photograph in a silver frame, preserved in the dry air of the sphere. It was a woman and a child, likely the family he had lost to the Great Quake of 1891, the tragedy that had driven him to this obsession. The machine was an act of love, a desperate, brilliant attempt to ensure that the earth never shook the foundations of a home again. Ilara felt a tear trace a path down her cheek, moved by the profound solitude and dedication of this forgotten genius. She had the power to salvage it, to bring the story to the surface, to let the world marvel at the Victorian technology. But as she listened to the rhythmic, soothing thrum of the signal, she realized that doing so would break the loop. It would silence the song. The machine was still working, still drawing heat from the vent, still broadcasting its calming vibration into the bedrock. Who was she to say it wasn't working? The region had been remarkably geologically stable for the last century. Perhaps it was luck, or perhaps it was the song of the machine. Ilara made a decision then, a choice that only a true keeper of secrets could make. She backed the drone away slowly, letting the darkness reclaim the copper dome. She wouldn't mark this location on the public charts. She wouldn't bring a salvage crew. She would let Elias Thorne keep his vigil. As the Nautilus ascended, leaving the green glow of the dome behind, the pressure eased, and the water turned from black to indigo to the lighter blue of the surface. The signal faded on the audio monitor, returning to a whisper, then a memory. When the drone broke the surface, the sun had fully set, and the sky was a tapestry of stars. The Milky Way stretched across the heavens like a river of milk. The lake was calm, the water lapping gently against the hull of the Silence. Ilara secured the drone and stepped out onto the deck, breathing in the cold night air. The mystery was solved, but the magic remained. She felt a deep sense of peace, a connection to the man who had loved the world enough to try and sing it to sleep. She imagined the machine down there, spinning in the dark, a mechanical heart beating for the valley, a secret shared between the tectonic plates and the water. She went back into the cabin, turned off the sonar, and prepared to head back to shore, leaving the signal beneath the lake to continue its eternal, silent concert. The boat cut a smooth path through the water, the wake shimmering with bioluminescence. As Ilara steered toward the distant lights of the harbor, she felt a heaviness in her eyelids, a comforting, warm exhaustion that promised a night of dreamless, restorative sleep, cradled by the knowledge that some mysteries are meant to remain buried, humming softly in the deep, watching over us while we rest. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you, and see you again.